can see the elation on both these players' faces, excited to be here. And I think, the fact that the only loss between these two players have been to each other. That's right. DrJikininki's only loss in this tournament is to DocPwn in round 6. Otherwise, combined, they've destroyed the field.
Yeah, pretty incredible considering they're playing very different lineups. They do have some overlap. There is the Reno Lock, there is the Warrior, but the Rogue from DrJikininki, I think, is really kind of the standout deck here, and I think that may be ultimately what I expect may give him an edge here in the finals, even though he did lose in the Swiss.
Yes, the Rogue specifically has been a big question mark in the tournament. Heading into it, I bought into the hype. I thought that this Rogue was going to be the next big thing, at least for the next couple of weeks here, going into the Asia-Pacific playoffs. And I thought, man, if people don't pick up this Rogue, they're behind. But it's definitely had middling results. But the person that's been able to benefit off of him is DrJikininki. If you look at his results with the Rogue, it's been able to do very well. And some people are saying, you know what, maybe a full aggro lineup isn't the answer, but I think they're onto something here. That's going to potentially be a difference maker as we go into game number 1 of the Grand Finals. Winner gets to call themselves the champion of the winter season.
And this is the Warrior Mirror match. We've seen this a lot. This is the most popular deck of the entire tournament. Pirate Warrior was brought by nearly 70% of players, and that means that we have seen lots of patches running into patches, and that's what these players will be looking for, not being in their hands, is patches. But yeah, DrJikininki, I'm going to keep mispronouncing it every time. Maybe I'll just call him Dr. J for the rest of the finals.
That's the easy way out, Brian.
It really is.
But I expect better.
Jikininki. I think that's what it is. Jikininki, not Jinkininki. There's no N before the K. I keep wanting to put an N there because there's so many other N's.
It's better than the name that I keep calling him by accident, which is completely unintentional. DocPwn, he's going to pick up the South Sea deckhand. A little bit awkward, but he's got ways to answer the board here. Is it ever worth, in your opinion, utilizing upgrade not as to upgrade a weapon, but just as the 1/3 axe to start cleaning up the board early stages? Because it does feel overkill if you're going to use it to fight War Axe.
Yeah, it can be. Here, we actually heard Sottle talking a little bit about this earlier, about how in many cases, the game between Pirate Warrior isn't about one big thing. It's about a number of small things, because as you get into the middle of the game, any individual attack is usually something fairly big. So you don't want to have to use those on small minions. So if you're able to just get a number of minions on the board and just kind of plink away at your opponent, it can be difficult for them to remove that unless they get to the board early themselves.
Well, consequently, you can also wait. Maybe you coin the Fiery War Axe, and then the Dread Corsair becomes cheaper.
Yeah.
So then you can play that and try to lock your opponent out of the board. This also seems like a very reasonable line of play, and it also sets himself up to potentially answer anything threatening over the next couple turns.
Yeah, this does allow DocPwn to have the upgrade into Corsair if he wants it next turn, to just give him a 4/2 weapon and a free 3/3, which obviously matches up very well against what Dr. J has on the board right now, though could be a little bit worse if he's able to upgrade into Cultist over the course of the next turn.
Now, what a road DrJikininki has had to get here, beating VLPS, Soleil, Teray, Watt he had to defeat twice, and Amnesiac. That is, I mean, if I could beat all those players, I feel like I already am the champion, but he's still got one step further. This is the exact play we were talking about. The fact that the weapon can become 4 attack means Dread Corsair becomes free, and you can finally get patches out, and that is a dominant board position for DrJikininki, for DocPwn, excuse me. I'm going to do that a lot this series.
It's like the first Doctor, the second Doctor.
Yeah, one's the Doc. He wants to keep it loose.
He's just the Doc.
And the other guy's very
up?
formal. It's a lesson. Stay in school, kids. It's not worth it. Well, DrJikininki, that's a pretty big board, but the follow-up here from DocPwn is what's really powerful. The fact that he can upgrade his weapon again and wipe the Pirates off the board. Now, DrJikininki has the follow-up with South Sea Deckhand Bloodsail Cultist himself. It just seems to be going back and forth here.
Yeah, these are some really, really sharp War Axes. We're actually going to see pretty much the same play from DrJikininki here. DocPwn has to be thinking, do I want to just use this attack into your Raider and take 6 damage to the face? The fact that DrJikininki had the Raider to just get such a huge threat makes it very difficult to use a weapon as removal without sacrificing huge amounts of your own health.
It does feel like
you can't take multiple hits.
It does feel like you're not in the mode where you need to race. You do have Leroy and Heroic Strike as damage, but you're still kind of fleshing out the early game here. A lot can change between now and when you want to start racing your opponent.
And here, Dr. J has the ability to upgrade his weapon again if he wants with the Deckhand plus Cultist. He can also just fire off the Kor'kron Elite. And again, DocPwn would need to use that weapon to take out the minion and effectively take 8 damage from the Elite. But he's going to go ahead and build a wider board here. We mentioned how effective that can be. Potentially can just use his weapon to either go face or take out the cultists on the opposing side. So this is one of those, trying to manage, okay, am I in the position to try to just burn my opponent out, or am I looking to play for board control?
Yeah, I think it's going to completely depend on who fizzles out first on the board. And it looks like DocPwn might be the first person that has to settle for that because he has nothing in the hand so far. Okay, Small Time Buccaneer does help. It makes sure that when his opponent plays a minion like Kor'kron Elite, he can answer it. But it's definitely not the most comfortable position here.
And this is how the sort of board control phase of the Pirate Warrior matchup can go. The player who draws more of Leroy, Heroic Strike, Mortal Strike, those kinds of just one-shot damage style cards, or effectively one-shot, usually don't want to be just going in with Leroy on turn 5. So sometimes it comes up that way, especially if you can remove one of the whelps and there's nothing else on the board. That player tends to be at a disadvantage because they are kind of stuck with cards in hand that they don't necessarily want to play, while the player who draws more minions and more weapon upgrade effects can just keep the pressure on.
I don't necessarily think that an aggressive strategy of all in on the face is it's not as effective still, because you don't, even though your opponent removes your Small Time Buccaneer, you don't have the game-ending damage. The fact that the warrior can, if you start going face, they know what's going to happen here. And look at what's being drawn, a Dread Corsair.
Yeah, Dread Corsair into a Kor'kron Elite this turn. And Dr. J can use his weapon to clear off the Buccaneer or just head to the face. Clearing the Buccaneer protects another minion, which, again, as we mentioned, that repeat damage is so powerful in this matchup because DocPwn would need to use his weapon and the last charge of this weapon currently in order to clear this off.
Yeah, this is nasty. DocPwn's only minion to play is Leroy Jenkins, but at best, it just trades onto the board and gets you the damage. Is there even a scenario that he can engineer in order to set himself up to potentially kill his opponent? I don't think so. I think perhaps if the Dread Corsair wasn't there, then he would have 10 damage from the hand. He can try to set up a weapon for the future turn, and it'd be a maybe. But for now, it looks like he's stuck just hoping that his opponent draws literally nothing next turn, which is kind of hard to imagine.
Yeah, the situation is quite dire for DocPwn here. He doesn't really have any clean way to take either of these minions off the board. Yes, he can attack one with his weapon, but takes a bunch of damage to the face in doing so. And then nothing to really deploy that helps him get back into the game. He has that additional weapon, but can only swing once per turn, does not have Wind Fury. So, going to just be falling behind that Kor'kron Elite even further.
Do you toss Leroy to stop the damage? You're only mitigating it by 2 per turn. You're still kind of losing in the long run here. And your hand's just full of more direct damage from the weapon swings.
I mean, the big question is, how do you win, right? It's not just how do I survive as long as possible, it's how do I win? And I think he recognizes the only way I'm going to win is if I somehow get burst damage with Leroy. I end up just putting my opponent ahead in terms of resources. If I'm just using this to give him 2 whelps and remove a little bit of damage, he's just going to lose, it's going to take longer. Right. So here I think DocPwn's thinking, okay, maybe I can pick up a little bit more burst and maybe win the game, but not against the damage that Dr. J has now. That should probably come close to sealing things up.
Yeah, we'll see here. DocPwn has maybe a
charge
couple
minion.
ways.
Yeah, Heroic Strike does nothing.
Well,
Yeah, he can use the Leroy to take off one of these minions, but again, he's just in the situation of losing slower. He doesn't even get to armor up that way either, so he ends up losing to any individual point of damage.
Well, I think he's just dead because he can't armor up, and then there's whelps.
Oh, right, the whelps, yeah. So if he did that, yeah, I was thinking he could still.
It looks like he's done for.
No, you're totally right. And there, yeah, DocPwn recognizes it, and it is Dr. J who takes the 1-0 lead, looking for revenge over his only loss in the Swiss.
Interestingly enough, I think he'd be really close to killing his opponent, or maybe he had the damage if he had enough mana. He actually did draw just raw amount of damage. If he had 9 mana, he would have been able to play Leroy, Heroic Strike. And we've all been there to the point where Pirate Warrior gets late enough in the game, you think, I can surely survive an aggressive deck, right? If it's gotten this far. Nope, they just add a crazy amount of burst, because Heroic Strike with that big weapon that they've upgraded a lot of times, get you there.
He's just like Millhouse Mana Storm from the tutorial.
I know.
Just wait until I get to 10 mana, I'll get you.
Oh, just wait till I have 10 mana.
That's what everyone seems to feel like when they're playing against Pirate Warrior. They're just like, oh, I can play my Ysera, and then I'll get you with this dream on my no, you're not. You're dead. Sorry.
Yeah, they're definitely done for. But going into the Pirate Warrior mirrors, it felt like, again, this is pretty important for DocPwn to get the win because we've seen the Pirate Warrior sometimes be a liability in the face of some of these Reno decks. We'll see if it ends up playing a factor because I still think the big question mark is how will the Rogue perform. We've seen it fizzle out several times. We've also seen it do extremely well. We've seen the Swashbuckler get the Archmage Antonidas into the Flame Waker and get 4 fireballs, and all of a sudden they're playing Freeze Mage.
It turns out Antonidas would be a pretty good Rogue card.
Yeah, who knew? with a bunch of coins.
Not bad at all.
Going into game number 2, let's see if DocPwn can keep up or can return the momentum here by getting himself a win onto the board. I want to see if DrJikininki can also go toe-to-toe with the Reno Warlock, because that seems to be one of the interesting things happening across all the series that DocPwn plays. It's always about the Reno Warlock mirrors. That's going to have to wait, though. We're going to go into Rogue versus the Pirate Warrior. How do you think this Rogue does?
I think the Rogue is actually okay against Pirate Warrior. It's not great, but it's much better than Miracle Rogue because it is a much more proactive version of Rogue. It gets on the board much faster. One of the keys in this matchup, in addition to just the removal of something like Backstab, which you see Dr. J keeping in his hand, is the fact that you have Divine Shield minions like Argent Squire and Argent Horse Rider that combine extremely well with Cold Blood and can often force your opponent into very awkward trades.
Oh boy, you never want to see this. Patches in the opening hand, and I think that's almost a formality
it's
at this point.
mandatory that you greet or oops when your Patches is in your hand and your opponent knows it.
Yeah, the classic misplay with Patches. And DrJikininki, of course, gets his Patches, has the Backstab to follow up with it. And that's a good start for Rogue so far. And DocPwn doesn't really have a way to answer the small-time Buccaneer, so it looks like it's going to dominate the board at the moment.
Finds a Rusty Hook.
Just kidding.
Off the Nazoth's first mate, so along with the Patches, which he did have in his hand. Incidentally, in this instance, a little bit better that it's in his hand because it doesn't just get eaten by the Patches, so he can kill the Buccaneer.
Yeah, that's actually true. It's really funny when it works out that way. At the same time, I don't know how disappointed Rogue is, because I think Rogue is really worried about getting blown out in the early game. If there's a time where you just feel like you fall super far behind, it's in the first couple turns, because Pirate Warrior has access to weapons, tempo, and a lot of ways to upgrade those weapons for additional damage as the game goes on.
Yeah, one of the strongest cards in the Pirate Warrior deck in, well, any matchup, but in particular here is Fiery War Axe, because it can give them so much of a tempo advantage. In the early turns. Dr. J, he actually has an interesting play with Argent Horse Rider attack, Shadow Coin play it again to kill this. You don't want to fall behind the Frothing Berserker. That's one of the ways that you lose. And here, yeah, Dr. J wastes no time in just Shadow Stepping and re-Horse Ridering, so effectively combining those for removal on that Frothing.
I know you're well loved. I know you have a fantastic family and dog and everything.
But
that doesn't give you the right to just make up words.
No, that's totally a word. Horse rider is clearly a verb. It is to ride a horse.
Maybe riding.
To play
he could be riding twice. How about that? But that's a really interesting play there. I thought maybe there's, people usually see, coin Tomb Pillager. That seems to be a lot stronger. But he didn't want to be in the position where he can't use life as a resource. That's where Rogue is at its weakest, when it has to be in a position where it chooses to use its life, and then all of a sudden can't catch up because Pirate Warrior is racing.
And here, for instance, I think that we may see DrJikininki use the Horse Rider Coin SI to remove this, rather than using his face, because he wants to preserve his life total, and also just get those minions on the board.
Yeah, I mean, he will be able to get pretty good tempo through this too. The fact that he drew Tomb Pillager, he's hitting some really important cards. He's hitting meaty, mid-sized minions. And the Pirate Warrior can't remove him efficiently, especially now that he's going wider onto the board.
He uses his face anyway. Okay, he wants to leave up the Divine Shield here.
Well, he's in the dominant position.
He is. It's true, and he now has a tough to remove minion in that Argent Horse Rider. Given the fact that he was at 26, his life total is a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, and I think he wants to maximize his damage, also knowing that he keeps his options open in case he wants to Tomb Pillager Hero Power, or if he picks up Azure Drake and perhaps something else cheaper to play. Now, if you're a DocPwn's position, this is awkward. You have a lot of damage, and then you have the Bloodsail Raider. Bloodsail Raider technically can be protected if you drop it and you trade into the SI7 agent, but you're also giving up a lot of damage.
So how much damage do you have right now? You have 9 from Reaper, you get 14 You play the Raider.
You could set him to 10 right now.
And then with Mortal Strike, yeah, I mean, it looks like you're protecting this. And it is currently on board, actually going to potentially allow this 7-attack minion to remain in play. Dr. J will need to find something if he wants to clear this off easily.
Yeah, so he does have backstabs in his deck. He could acquire, say, a Cold Blood. That'd be also just as clutch. No South Sea deckhand because of the way the weapon dagger was used last turn. He shut that off. He shut that possibility off. And said is he gonna man mode this or is he gonna race?
It's 7 is a lot of damage.
It is,
but at the same time, it's gonna if he doesn't kill it now, it's definitely connecting next turn.
Right.
So he might as well use his face to remove it now. And yeah, that's a lot of damage, down to 16.
And DocPwn has Mortal Strike, Heroic Strike, and Upgrade. That's not what he's looking for, but that's 9 damage currently this turn. He could conserve the Mortal Strike for additional damage because he's pretty close to the 12 health threshold.
Yep.
So if he can count that damage, so over 2 turns, he would have 2 from Upgrade, 4 from Heroic Strike, and 6. So that would be 12 damage. Still a little bit off, but he would have 4 mana remaining, so he can pick up a Core Card Elite, he can pick up another Heroic Strike, or perhaps something else that I'm not thinking of, an Arcanite Reaper, perhaps.
And now I think we may see Dr. J potentially look to just deploy enough damage to play around Heroic Strike, or Mortal Strike rather, if he can, not necessarily attack DocPwn down. Though at the same time, DocPwn does have the ability to attack in with his own weapon into one of these minions. He doesn't need that damage against Mortal Strike.
But he would have to have double Mortal Strike for the punish.
Right, yeah, that would end up being the only thing that could go badly, but Doc actually only has a single Mortal Strike in his deck.
Yeah.
So this needs to be Crocron Elite for DocPwn.
Or Heroic Strike? I guess he has to use it defensively now, using Mortal Strike to eliminate off the most damage here. And then Fiery War Axe can get you 6 damage over 2 turns. You can still draw the second Mortal Strike for lead. Or you don't have a second one. I just apologize.
Yeah, the Mortal Strike is the only 6 damage burst card you have. Only thing that's not a increment of above 5. And if he's using the Fiery War Axe for damage, he can't use an Arcanite Reaper. So I don't see a road for DocPwn to win this game.
Yeah, if he gets Heroic Strike, he'll be 1 damage off lethal.
Yep.
Now that's assuming that we're missing something. If DrJikininki can't even produce damage over 2 turns, but he's got a pretty big board coming up here. It's almost insurmountable at this point.
I mean, he can play Small Time Buccaneer and coin out Edwin Van Cleef. That's just an absolutely absurd-sized board here that will definitely finish off DocPwn next turn.
Yeah, so DocPwn's got 1 draw, but I don't see anything in his deck.
He hasn't played Leroy, has he?
You're right.
He's Leroy.
Leroy is his last
Leroy is the last possible card he can draw.
And there's 18 cards.
1 turn for Leroy Jenkins. And that's
that's not gonna happen. Not today, DocPwn. DrJikininki is up 2-0. 1 game away from claiming the championship of the winter season.
Yeah, and DrJikininki is had incredible run here so far. His only loss has been to DocPwn, and DocPwn came into this tournament saying he had no expectations, that he just was telling his friends, I'm gonna make it to the Bahamas, guys, I'm gonna win.
Ironically,
of course. Yeah, and when he did, he's like, oh, wow, that was cool.
Yeah, and what's really cool is to see his progression. He made this the preliminaries multiple seasons over the course of 2016. He said, I'm going to try. I'm trying. He bombed out a couple times. That just happens whenever you enter. But he kept trying, and now this is the big run and big deep run that he's been looking for. So it's a really inspiring story for people who watch and they think they can't do it. I mean, the whole point is that you never know until you try.
Yeah, and DocPwn, he may be down 0-2 in this series, but he's 9-0 in matches up to this point.
He's winning by all measurements except for this series.
We have not seen that feat achieved in the Hearthstone Championship Tour before.
Yeah.
So even if he does lose just this next game, it's 3-0 in the finals, still an incredible run.
Yeah. So DocPwn, or Pwn, excuse me. I keep calling him Pawn.
You do.
I do. I
you just
fail
like
my
mispronouncing players'
score.
names. Yeah, this is even just like a term that you should know if you were on the internet at any time in the the 90s and 2000s.
Well, Brian, during the 2000s, I was still going through middle school at that time. So it was a very formative age. We don't like to talk too much about it. I don't like bringing up the past. Dr. Pwn, win back my internet street cred here. I don't really have much left here. Versus DrJikininki. We have
This is just a battle of unpronounceable names.
Here's the thing. All right. One of his friends specifically sent a message on social media. He actually tagged DrJikininki and tagged us, me and you.
Oh, I know.
Saying we're pronouncing his name wrong. And he said that was his goal. He specifically made his username to confuse broadcasts and the casters.
Mission accomplished.
Rude.
Mission accomplished.
I would never do this.
But we are into what could be the final game of the America's Winter Playoffs here. DrJikininki leads 2-0. He's got a great hand for this matchup. Turn 1, Mistress of Mixtures, Mortal Coil, Earthen Ring Farseer, and Dirty Rat, all waiting in the wings.
I always think Dirty Rat is a little risky just because if you can't answer the ideal scenario immediately, which is your opponent has Frothing Berserker, or even Korokon Elite. It's like really hard to answer efficiently, and then you just fall too far behind in damage. Yeah, the 2/6 taunt is pretty good, but don't forget Pirate Warrior, some of the most explosive of any deck we've seen in Hearthstone's history.
It's true, and that said, DrJikininki has exactly the kind of hand to contain those explosive starts. Deckhand from DocPwn on turn 1. He's looking to defend this Buccaneer in his hand. He doesn't want to expose that to just getting attacked by the Mistress of Mixtures, but Dr. J has the perfect answer with that Mortal Coil for the 2/1 and can just attack into patches. So he gets to pick up a card and clear the board off, and a Doomsayer drawn.
Wow.
That's going to give him a little bit more breathing room, and that's what he's looking for.
Yep, no weapon for DocPwn. And you know, how familiar are we with this position here? The Pirate Warrior does not draw the weapon at all. Reno Jackson comes into the hand. I don't know, man. These are some of the most powerful tools. I think you're looking for literally all 5 of these cards in Mortal Coil in the very beginning.
If you could choose your first 6 cards, 7 cards in this matchup, these might be those.
Yes.
You might pick these cards. Maybe you pick a Shadow Bolt in there to give you an answer to a Frothing Berserker.
Maybe an Ooze.
But it's very, very close to this.
Yeah, and this is exactly what the deck is trying to do. Granted that DrJikininki also has Curse of Rafaam in the deck, just so he can target some of those Reno mages. Really cool stuff coming out over these past couple weeks here. Looking like he's kind of pained if he can get away with this Doomsayer, but on 3 mana with the potential coin, you know, most ranges for damage is 4. You would have to have Mortal Strike and Change in order to kill this off.
And DocPwn does not really have a board worth protecting. If he invested 7 damage into this Doomsayer, it would be kind of embarrassing to protect a 2/3. And here, even if he attacks, he's just going to get healed up by the Mistress of Mixtures. Yeah. So this is basically just a do-nothing turn for DocPwn.
Yeah, and then if your opponent gets away with the Doomsayer, that's when you try to set up something for the following turns, a weapon perhaps. DocPwn can't even coin out the Arcanite Reaper just yet. So, DrJikininki can also take initiative here. He can play the Farseer. He also is in a very unique position where he can get away with life tapping too. Not that he necessarily would want to, but I have seen some people feel like they can do it.
Keeps drawing everything you could possibly want. There's the Ooze, ready, waiting for that Arcanite Reaper to come down. And just going to tempo Farseer.
Yeah,
just get down the 3/3. No, it absolutely is. But usually, when you play a Farseer, you're like desperately trying to stay alive. And here, DrJikininki is able to play it just to get it on the board to contest whatever DocPwn does play. Oh, and here's the Reaper, and it's going to be the bad news for DrJikininki as there is a Acidic Swamp Ooze waiting to answer just that. 5 mana, kill your Farseer, and then just have it go away. He just assassinated that Farseer.
Yeah, essentially. Well, at the cost of 3 life.
It's true.
I mean, DrJikininki was so far ahead, he could actually heal his opponent, and it wouldn't be the wrong play at this point. But Dirty Rat pulls out Korokon Elite. A little bit unfortunate. We're talking about how that was one of the worst case scenarios. But again, DocPwn without that weapon means 3 out of the 4 cards in his hand lose significant power.
Yeah, and now this, even with the Korokon Elite, can't get damage into the face right now. He's going to have to attack both his minions into the Dirty Rat. And this is just setting Dr. J up for a Hellfire to clear off a huge board of minions. DocPwn, he's just in a position, okay, my opponent's at 30. I'm playing as Reno Walk. I need to just go in and hope he doesn't have it. Dr. J has it.
Yeah, he's got this Hellfire. Still can hold on to it. I mean, Secondary Bruiser does allow him some flexibility in his plays. But I think this is really clearly a Hellfire turn, clearing the board. DocPwn, he tosses out a well play. I think he senses what's happening here. There's a constant recurring theme, which is I can't do anything. My opponent will not let me get set up. This is a turn 7 where the Reno Warlock has every single tool at his disposal, including the iconic Reno Jackson card.
Yeah, even if DocPwn were able to establish something of a board, Dr. J does have the absolute comeback mechanic in Reno Jackson. Here he's just going to blast Crystal Potion, get that minion off the board. The Imp Gang boss matches up very well against South Sea Captain, and DocPwn with just Leroy in his hand, that's not nearly enough burst to kill someone who's still at 25 life.
Yeah, I mean, DocPwn is so far behind on board. Even the world's most powerful telescope couldn't be able to see DrJikininki right now. He needs a miracle set of draws here where he needs to draw the most powerful weapons, followed by non-stop upgrades, and it has to be a lot of clinks here or whiffs from DrJikininki's draws. You have to get stuff like Curse of Rafam and other cards that he can't really utilize efficiently at all.
Yeah, this Bruiser comes down and stalls all this damage from DocPwn again. The 4-attack minion, the 3/1 that can now get traded into by an Imp. He does find the N'Zoth's First Mate for a Rusty Hook, so he can kill this, but being able to remove your opponent's minions is not the position you're looking to be in this matchup. You want to be the one pushing lots of damage to face. He gets to attack for 3.
Yeah.
Is that the first time he's actually managed to attack his opponent's face? I think he got in with a 2/3 that just got healed up.
Yeah, for the most part, it's been self-inflicted damage. But look at what DrJikininki is able to pull off, too. Who misses the Antique Healbot? Not this guy. He's got Refreshment Vendor. Well, let's be real. We all miss Antique Healbot.
I do.
Yeah, we all, a certain part of us
But
do.
I'm also a big fan of funnel kicks. There's an Arcanite Reaper that may seem like a breath of hope for DocPwn, but this is still just too little, too late against the incredibly powerful hand that Dr. J has had this game.
It's a start, though. It's a start. I mean, DrJikininki is not exactly in a position to start pushing and threatening DocPwn over a couple turns. I mean, that card doesn't feel particularly very good right now. So that's an example of a card that is required for DocPwn to make the comeback here. But it's just looking so unlikely at this point. I have to even say that he has to hit Sir Finley into life tap into the ideal cards from that point so he can even accelerate the clock further.
Yeah, I don't even know if he could decide the order of the cards in his deck. Just put even multiple cards in his deck in his hand at this point. He could beat this board in this hand from Dr. J.
I mean, there's 13 power on the board. DocPwn's going to calculate everything, but Filing Berserker is just not useful. And his weapon going to the face, he's hoping his opponent doesn't have Reno Jackson. But lo and behold, the hero of the tournament, the one we don't deserve, but we have seen so many times, Reno Jackson going to save the day once again. And DocPwn has no answer to it. DrJikininki is going to take this series 3-0, and there's nothing that can stop him.
Yeah, you see the second well played of the game coming out for DocPwn, and the actual concession comes down. DrJikininki is the Winter America's champion.
Congratulations, getting revenge on DocPwn for his only defeat in the entire tournament. The only players that these guys lost to were each other, but DrJikininki able to get it when it counted the most. He is the championship winner. A job well done to DocPwn. He's going to have to settle for second place. DrJikininki is the doctor of the day.
Yeah, I mean, these two players both kind of came out of nowhere. No one had really heard of either of these players coming to this tournament, but DocPwn's performance 9-0 up to the finals, and then DrJikininki coming in, taking the whole series. People remember them now.
We have a winter champion. DrJikininki has bested a field of 70 of the top players from Americas. But that's not the only storyline carrying into the Winter Championships. We have DocPwn, Frozen, Teray, and DrJikininki, as well as a fabulous group of commentators who have joined us all throughout the weekend. We are joined by DrJikininki for an interview, just to talk to him about what it's like being the America's champion. Describe the feeling, if you can, to me right now, the emotions.
Oh, it feels so good. I wasn't expecting too much. I was just happy I was competing with all these great players. And when I started going 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 in Swiss, I was like, wait, I can do this. I can be the champion, and I'm so glad right now.
Yeah, you've achieved a couple of amazing feats. Another one is to stump the casters in pronouncing your name. And
that was another goal.
Yeah, that was a goal. And I'm not too fond of that right now, man. So watch your back when you come to the Bahamas, dude. Why don't you go ahead and explain what your name is? Is it supposed to be a special double meaning, or did you just literally accidentally hold the I and N key too many times when
yeah,
submitting your
I just kept
name?
spacing the I and N keys. No, it's it's a little weird where it comes from. It comes from Japanese folklore. It's just I enjoy folklore, and I was looking up some cool folklore for Japanese, and it was one of the names. I was like, wow, that name is so cool. I gotta use this name. And then the doctor part, I just love the term for doctor. So that's about it.
Well, apparently being a doctor works out pretty well on the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Is there anyone who you want to thank for maybe helping you get to this point in your preparation, practicing for the tournament?
There's a lot of people. I want to thank first and foremost my practice partner DrJikininki, who brought Zoo today. He was gonna go with this lineup, but he decided to go with Zoo, and I wish he would have brought this lineup. But Ninja, thanks a lot for the practice. Local friends, Bad Shops, Innovation, Conrad, Dementio, email support. I'd like to thank the guys at the Cave Fairfax for doing a good job here, and then local town Forge people. Thank you for rooting me on. My phone kept blowing up. Thank y'all a lot, and also last one, Cap 9. Cap 9 suggested the lineup to me, and it worked wonders. So thank all of y'all, and if I forgot you, sorry.
We'll certainly keep an eye out for any of those names in future tournaments as well. I want to ask about your thoughts going into the field for the championships in Bahamas. Now that you've seen a lot of who you're going to be playing in the tournament, how do you feel how well do you think you're going to be able to do at the tournament?
There's a lot of good competition at this tournament, but I think I've proved myself today. I think I've played really well, got a little lucky, and I think I'm going to do well at the Bahamas.
All right, man. We'll see if that ends up holding true. Congratulations again, man. You're the America's Winter Champion.
Thank you.
All right, well, the doctor is in and the doctor is out. He's the winter champ, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. I think he's earned a lot of respect from his peers, too. If you check social media from a lot of feed of the players, the news lines are all saying that they're backing up his play. They think he's the most deserving out of the top. And it feels like it's definitely a good reward to be able to see a player do so well and yet not necessarily be a person that's, it's like a new face. Getting fresh blood is always really revitalizing to the ecosystem.
And that's so much of what HCT is about. We built stars last year. We introduced people like Dr. Hippie, George C., made so many names that are now just popular in the Hearthstone scene, well-known players, and it looks like Dr. J is well on his way to becoming one of them.
We've had a wonderful 2 days covering a lot of the America's winter playoffs. We want to get some final thoughts over from some of the other faces that joined us throughout the weekend. We have TJ, Cora, Admirable, and the always lovely Lothar. TJ, another 2 days down. It just feels like it just ends so fast, man.
Yeah, the only thing more exciting than the action that we've seen this weekend is the prospect of getting to listen to Dan try and pronounce DrJikininki's name for an entire another tournament when we get to the Bahamas. So I just wanted to get you guys' favorite moments from throughout the weekend. We'll start with Admirable. Anything that stood out to you?
Dr. J with the slam dunk. Of course, at the end, both doctors make it to the finals. But I think for me, the biggest surprise is how well Frozen performed with Finja Warrior. He was the only competitor bringing it, found himself now going to the Bahamas. I think that's an incredible story.
Yeah, it really surprised me, too. Really surprised me. Cora?
I really loved seeing What's unique lineup. I loved the Reno Priest. Obviously, we only saw one of them, and ultimately he didn't end up making it to the Bahamas, but I think he performed really well with it. And of course, DrJikininki's interview right at the end. What a humble and deserving guy. Really fantastic to see.
Yeah, I think both those guys probably gained a lot of fans this weekend for different reasons there. And Lothar, all the way down in the end.
Yeah, hi.
If you could hear me, hey, what was some of your favorite moments?
I think my favorite moment was the fact that we had 2 doctors in the final, and I have to say I'm really a fan of DrJikininki because he was playing really tight the entire tournament. So I'm rooting for him in the Bahamas when he will be playing there. And now we're just lacking Dr. Disrespect here to also play Hearthstone. So.
All right, well, I think DrJikininki, he seems like a humble, well-spoken dude. Looking forward to seeing how he does. But we're going to send it back over to Danny Kibler to give us some final thoughts to wrap up the America's Winter Playoffs.
All right, Brian, 4 of them had stuff to say. This is your floor. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know, maybe DrJikininki is my favorite doctor now. Maybe beating out David Tennant. I was a big fan of him on Doctor Who, but maybe it's Dr. J now.
Okay, all right, I like it. Busting out the references, on point as always. And of course, none more than these 8 players that we have for the Europe and Americas region. We have Pavel, Green Sheep, Standardachi, Naria, Jikininki, DocPwn, Frozen, and Teray, as well as the Asia Pacific region, which we'll find out which of the 4 players hailing from Southeast Asia, Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and many more. February 24th and 25th, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific. That's 4 a.m. Central European times. And that is pretty much just for us done here.